Hi everybody, welcome back to the Claremont Classic Garage. In the last video, I kind of took you around and gave you an idea of some of the things we're hoping to get to this summer and spring and fall. And that's all great. But I have had some people ask me over the years in the comments if there's anything neat hiding in the barn here that we might see one day. Well, yeah, I got a few things I'd like to show you. So let's go. You know, we got a few things in the barn here. A lot of these are stuff you've already met before, so I'm not going to deal with those. What we're going to talk about is a few things that I've had for years and years and years and years that, well, if I ever get to them, I get to them. If I don't, I don't. You know, we'll see how things shake out. The lighting isn't great in here, so you'll have to bear with me. So here's the first one. Some of you may recognize this as a Dodge M880 pickup truck. This one is actually an M882. The M880 was a cargo truck. This is an M882. It was a radio truck. That's why it's in nice shape. The radio trucks took way less of a beating than the actual cargo trucks did. Somewhere along the line, this one has had oh, and sorry for those of you who don't know what that is. This thing is ex-U.S. Army. Back in the mid-70s, the United States government put out a contract for 3/4 ton work trucks, and Chrysler won the contract. So 1976 and 1977, they supplied these trucks with all kinds of designations. M880 and M882 were the most popular. There were also ambulances, and I'm sorry, remember the M number of an ambulance. 886 maybe? They were all in there. So these things were supplied. It was just basically a civilian 3/4 ton Dodge Power Wagon, 318, four-wheel drive with a 203 full-time transfer case, had a 727 transmission. Oddly, they had power brakes, but manual steering. Don't ask me. That's what they decided to do. So this one, being a radio truck, it had an auxiliary 24-volt alternator on it, and that ran all the radio equipment, which was mounted in the back. There was still some of the brackets and stuff for mounting the radio equipment, but most of it was gone. Back when I got this truck, I'm talking, oh boy, 20 years ago, I actually bought two of them. One was a lot more rusty. I got it from around Buffalo somewhere. And this one I got out of Detroit, but it was originally in North Carolina at a base there. That's why it's not all killed by salt. This truck is really, really solid. So basically what I did, the one from Buffalo was even though it was kind of a rust bucket, they had kept up with it, you know, with keeping it bondoed up. It didn't look too bad, but it was mechanically fragged. This one was a pretty decent truck, and it was tip top. So what I did was I took all the brakes, and I had to take the radiator out of this one. I took a lot of parts off this one, put it on the other one, and I drove it around a bit and sold it, right? I didn't really need a lot of the mechanical parts for this truck because of the plans that I had for it. And the plan for that truck mostly involves just taking the cab and the box off and dropping it on this. This is a 1993 5.9 Cummins W250 Dodge truck. So all the body from that M880 literally bolts onto this frame. So that's our plan. We want to have a diesel powered M880 or 882, I guess. Theoretically is what it is. This is a great running engine. I haven't ran it in a while, but it fires right up. It's got a rebuilt automatic transmission on it. That's the only thing I'm not entirely thrilled about, but that's what we got, so that's what we're using. I'd really be happier if it had a Getrag G360 like my old 93 pickup had, but this will be fine. At least it's got an overdrive. So like everything else, this project just seems to keep getting shoved to the back burner. But I'm really keen one day to get this thing done. I've got a lot, not everything for it, but I've got a lot of brand new parts for it up in the attic of my house, including piles and piles and piles of new old stock parts because it was such a large program. All the big military surplus places in the U.S. had piles of parts for those M880 trucks, and they sold them cheap. That's why you see so many restored Little Red Express trucks and Warlocks from that era, because they're all built using the new old stock M880 parts. So yeah, when we get going on this is going to be a really fun project. I've got the troop seats for the back of it. I've got the new old stock in a crate right from the U.S. Army. The big chuck wagon cover that goes over the back of it. I've got every electrical part for it, new old stock. Most of the interior trim, I've got new old stock. I've got a new old stock grill. I've got weather strips. I've got a new old stock rubber mat for the floor. This is going to be a nice truck when it's done. Like, I mean, nice. Beside it here, we've got a 1965 Chrysler Imperial. Technically, it's not a Chrysler, okay? I can hear y'all screaming at me now. Imperial was a separate car line, I think up until, sometime in the late 60s, it became a Chrysler Imperial. But up until, and including this one at least, it was just an Imperial. What is unique about this one is that it's a coupe. It's a two-door hardtop, right? Not a sedan like most of them were, or four-door hardtop. There's a trick to getting the door open, which I can't do right now. So the story on this car is my brother and me back 30 years ago when we were doing demo derbies. We were always buying cars. There was tons of great big old cars. And I'd say, probably, it's got to be 25 or 30 years ago anyway. We bought two of these. They were both two doors. This 65 and a 66. The 66 was pretty tough. It was pretty rotten. It just went in the derby right away. And it didn't do too well either. We were more used to Poleras and Monacos and Newports. We should have just stuck with them. That's a whole nother story. But this one, we kept. It was a pretty decent car. It's not all rotted. All the chrome trim was nice on it. It had one slap and tickle Bondo job because of a collision on the front of it. And originally it was like a champagne color, and it got painted white, which was kind of a famous trick back then. Once you Bondoed them up, paint them white, it hides a lot of sins, right? So, yeah, and this thing has been sitting here ever since. I took the interior out of it because the interior was kind of gross from the thing leaking water over the years and being parked outside. Then the mice got in it. So the interior's out of it, but we're gonna do some fun stuff with this. It's also a rolling car. It doesn't have an engine in it anymore. Originally it had a closed chamber 413 engine. By the time we got the car, it had a closed chamber 440 in it, which turned out to be no good. The engine was junk. That's another long story how we found that out. And also the transmission was the 1965 Bastard transmission, which is the old cable operated transmission from the push button days, but operated with a column mounted lever and cables and everything. 66, they went to the proper torque flight that we're familiar with the Z bar linkage on the frame and everything. But anyway, that's what this car had. So, what my plan is to do with this car is we're just going to do kind of a custom interior with whatever stuff we've got kicking around. I've got some leather seats out of something sitting there. We're going to use those. And the inside of it is going to get changed probably from gold to black. And it's going to have to get around the cable shifter issue. I've got a B-body console and shifter from a 68 Charger or something. We're going to put that in it so it'll be a floor shift. And the car is going to have no more big block. It's going to have a small block in it. Maybe the 318 from this truck, which runs this is a sweetheart. They put the best engines that came off the line in these fleet vehicles, right? This thing has got a really nice a really nice 318 in it. Or as a long shot, just for nostalgic purposes, I still have the two 360s that we used to use in our demo derby cars back in the day. So there's a lot of options to us. It will keep a 727 transmission because that's the easiest way to deal with mounts and the drive shaft that exists and all that stuff. We'll stick with that. And aside from that, this is another one that it's just gonna sit here till we get to it. Up in my attic again, I've got bins and bins and bins, all the electrical and small parts that we took off the 66 Imperial that we stripped down to Derby. So it's a good car. It needs a little bit of metal work, but really nothing too severe. It's just another one of those projects sitting around waiting for its turn. How about this one? This here is a 1970 Plymouth Duster. Again, I've had this car, 25, probably 30 years. It's from the South. I think it originally came from Arkansas. What happened was my green 70 Duster, it blew out the rear frame rails. Well, it didn't blow out, the salt, right? The rear frame rails on it rotted out finally. And I was freaking out. I didn't know what to do. And we went to a swap meet and we found this car. So I bought it. It's an original slant six car. It was lemon twist with a black bench seat interior, factory air conditioning, power steering, and manual drum brakes. That's about all I can remember about it, really. But what happened in the meantime, I lucked into a set of, just a set of rear rails for my Duster. So I just changed them myself, and the car's been going like that for years and years and years. So I didn't really need this one. I bought this one to just swap all of my parts for my green Duster onto this shell, right? Well, you can see we never did that. So this here, this is a pretty decent car, man. Let's see. You can see there that the shell is really nice on it. The rails and everything are perfect in it. It does need some floor pan work, but nothing too crazy. The rockers, all that stuff is good. The worst thing about it is it probably had a little rot in the bottom of the quarter panels, and some donkeys put a pair of half quarter panels on it, and they really did a botched job. Like, it looks okay on the outside, but when you open the trunk, it's a mess inside the trunk. So anyway, we can find a way around that. When I got it, it had the wrong trunk lid. It had like a 72 up trunk lid with the crease down the middle of it. So I found a proper 70 trunk lid. I had to drive to freaking Philadelphia to get that, but man, it was worth the drive. And from the same guy in Philadelphia, this car also had some Cordoba bucket seats or something somebody had put in it. The guy also had the proper front and rear 70 Duster bench seats that came out of the same car as the trunk lid. It had the wrong fenders on it. The fenders on it were modified 73 fenders with the wrong marker lights and everything. So I got these. These are, again, came from the South. The right fenders for it. The hood, I don't think the car even had a hood when I got it, but I came across a hood. So basically, I've got all the sheet metal for it. It's all decent. It just needs to be, restored properly. I had always planned, my plan for this car was to just do it completely stock, nothing on it, like no wings or scoops or anything like that. Just a plain Jane looking car with a 440 under the hood, right? I've got a nice 440 downstairs. But I wanted it to look like, I didn't want it to look like a hot rod. I wanted to open the hood and it'd just be like opening the hood of any other Mopar muscle car. That I wanted that 440 to look like it was put in there on the assembly line, and that it never ever had anything else in there. But that's how things were in my mind at that point. But other things come into my mind as time goes on, and now I've honestly been kind of leaning toward putting a slant six and an overdrive 833 in it, just bombing around, You could bomb around in this thing all day with a drivetrain like that in it. So I don't know. We'll figure it out. If we ever get to the point where we start doing something with it, I've got both drivetrains in stock, so I can put in whichever one I decide to put in at the time. It may start out with the slant 6 and the 4-speed in it, and if I decide I don't like that, I can stick the 440 in it anytime I want. It'll have an 8 3/4 rear end in it. It'll have disc brakes on the front. The car will be ready for any drivetrain you can throw at it. So that's the Duster. This over here is my Fastback. It's hard to get a look at it because there's so much junk up in here, but you can kind of see down the side of it here. This is a 68 Ford XL Fastback. These were pretty cool cars. I always liked these. So when I first got my 68 XL convertible Landshark, you know, you're always looking for parts and stuff on Marketplace or Kijiji, which is the Canadian equivalent of Craigslist, right? I came across this car. This car just popped up one night while I was looking at junk on Kijiji, and the guy wanted $800 or something for it, right? A complete rolling car. It's an XL. So it's got hideaway headlights, and unlike my convertible, this one's got bucket seats with the console, with the horseshoe floor shifter like a '69 Camaro. Really cool stuff, and it's the same dark red interior as my convertible. So I said, hey man, I'm gonna buy that for sure. So he went and picked it up. The inside of it was full of parts. It was all frozen. Couldn't get the trunk open. Couldn't get the hood open. But when we got it home, I put it in the garage and let it thaw out a bit, and we started looking at it. Well, it turns out I got the door open and looked at the placard on the door, and this thing was supposed to have a 302 with a C4 and a WER 8.5-inch rear end. I looked underneath it. Yes, it had a WER 8.5-inch rear end. But when I finally got the hood open, oh, come on, hood. Well, that ain't no 302. And that's exactly how it was. That is it's a 390 with a C6 on the back of it. So somebody had popped the 390 in this thing somewhere along the line. And then I don't know what happened to it, but it was like this when I got it taken apart. I did find the cylinder heads in the trunk and a 2-barrel intake manifold. So it's a Y code 392 barrel. It's an actual 68 engine. And so that was pretty cool. But you know me, I bought it for parts, and then I get looking at it and I go, man, this car's from out west. Like, it's from Alberta. So yeah, they have winter in Alberta, but they don't have winter like we have in Ontario. They don't go bonkers with the salt on the roads and that. So this car, like every other 68 Ford, the bottoms of the quarter panels are rotted out of it. But the rockers, the floor pans, all that stuff is good in it. And I said, hey, man. And then stupid me, I start screwing around. I managed to get an ownership for it, right? I went down to the license plate joint, put my hand on the Bible, swore my oath, and they checked the serial number. It was clean. They gave me an ownership for it. So I go, hey, man, I got a viable car here now. So there it is. Parts, no, it ain't getting parted out. We're going to fix it. So, yeah, that's the story of my life. So, one thing I wanted to do was I wanted to put it back to a 302, how it was when it was born. So here's a nice 302 that I've had for a very long time. It's back from my Enduro stock car racing days. This was, it started out, it came out of an 89 Econoline. So it was a flat tappet cam EFI motor from a van, right? Had a lot of miles on it, but it runs good. We stuck a small camshaft in it, and I stuck a die grinder in the ports and took the EGR bumps out of the ports. And I tell you what, oh, and we stuck up a Mustang GT, like an 85 Mustang aluminum intake on it. This thing runs really, really good. Like, it ran really good. It had lots of power, man. When I raced that, I was chasing down guys with Impalas with 350s in them, no problem. This little 302 would haul the mail. So this is the engine we're going to use in that 68 XL. And it's hard to see in there, but you can see on the floor just the input shaft sticking out of it. That's an SROD transmission out of like a an 82 or 83 Mustang GT. So it's like a close ratio 3-speed with an overdrive. They were pretty decent, good enough for what we're going to do. So yeah, I just got to cobble up some clutch pedals and stuff in it. We're going to try and do it all with Fox Body Mustang stuff. You can see there's a pair of Fox Body pedals. I've got a clutch cable and all that stuff. We're going to try and make that work. And failing that, we'll just use this here C4. The only other real issue with this car is it's got a few punky spots on the frame. The ends, like the stubs of the frame, are fine. It's just they're connected. The front and rear stubs on these things are connected with a piece of it's like 2x4 box tube, and it always rots out. I don't know if it was cheap steel they used or they didn't put enough vent/drain holes in it. I don't know what the problem is, but this car is pretty clean underneath, but yet the side rails on the frame are rotted out. So it's hard to see with the sun shining through the barn boards, but back there in the corner, I've got one decent side rail that we could graft into this frame, and then you use the top, you cut patches out of the top of the frame rail that you cut off to fix the bottom of the other side, or you know, whatever, you can just cut patches out of that, depending on how bad it is. We can repair this frame invisibly, properly, and safely. Or if you happen to be like me and have a perfect rust-free frame from Texas sitting in your drive shed, you could use that too. But we'll see what we do. If the frame in the car looks easy enough to fix, we'll just fix it. But if we have to, we'll lift the body off and drop it onto this one. It's a long story how I got this frame. It's from before I even started my channel. I answered a want ad for a guy that had a 68 four-door hardtop LTD and a bunch of parts. That's all I knew. I went out there with my truck and my trailer, and here was this car. Yeah, the guy had brought it up from Texas. He brought it up from Texas. It had a 390 in it and a C6. He took those out. The 390 went to the machine shop and was completely rebuilt, 30 over, crankshaft, everything. Same thing with the transmission. It went to the transmission shop, overhauled, new converter, shift kit, the works, all new exhaust on it, put it all back together, and then they started doing the body and never touched it again. And like the engine was never even started up and broken in. That's how fresh this thing was when I got it. So I literally have a brand new 4-barrel 390 engine and C6 transmission, and this Texas frame. I guess I'll use this stuff up somewhere along the line. So there she is. That's the story of our 68 XL Fastback. Well, sorry about the glare, but here's the last thing I'm going to show you. Oh, but before that, I just have to take one more look at my 68 Fastback. I always loved these cars. The Fastback roof was just so cool. I always liked the first generation Chargers, the 66, 67. They look awesome. And this car looks, the silhouette of it is very similar to those Chargers. I really like it. And then the 68, 69 Torino Fastbacks, they were awesome too. But yeah, this is cool. Okay, back to this. This here, see if I could stand back and get a good shot of it. Here we go. Oh man, the sun coming through those barn boards. This here is a 47 Dodge pickup. Again, we brought this one up from the US several years ago. Despite it looking like just a cabinet chassis, I have every single body part for it, and they're all relatively clean. Some of them have had a little work done on them over the years, like this fender, but generally pretty decent tin. The cab is nice. The doors are nice. It's got the flathead Chrysler 6-cylinder engine in it. This originally would have had a 218. This one is a 55 Plymouth 230. So it's a little bit bigger. All rebuilt, ready to go. It's got a 3-speed manual on the floor. We're going to swap that out. This here is a T5 from an S10. So it's got the forward mounted shifter And it's from the early S10, so it's got the mechanically driven speedo, which makes it easy to use in these older trucks. And there's a very simple kit that you buy, and this S10 T5 literally bolts to the factory bell housing in this truck. And then the only thing when you do that, you lose your parking brake, because on this, the parking brake is on the back of the transmission. So simple, the way around that, you can just see the end of it down there. You get from a Jeep XJ Cherokee from the mid-90s. That's a Chrysler 8 1/4 corporate rear end. It literally, the one from the Jeep literally bolts into this truck. And then all you got to do is come up with a foot pedal or a hand lever or some way to operate the parking brake. It's already been switched up to 12 volt. I mean, there's not much to it, right? It's got a Chevy alternator on it. It's got a set of aftermarket gauges but they fit in the original factory holes, all 12 volt. In the house, I've got the original seat. It's all recovered, ready to go. It was like that when we bought the truck. It came with piles of new parts, piles of rebuilt parts. Like the chassis on this truck, it's all redone. It had all new brakes on it, new shocks, everything. It was all fresh, you know. I did have it running. We used to start it up and drive it around the field, you know. It runs good, drives good. So yeah, one of these days we're going to get to this. It's a funny story how I got it. Yeah, that 302 downstairs that I showed you that we're going to put in the 68 XL. I had that engine sitting here and I was trying to find something to do with it, you know. So I said to Deb, I said, we got to find an old Ford pickup like my dad's 53. But we wanted the 48 to 52, the style before that. And we would put that little 302 in it. But man, Ford pickups, they were few and far between. Like, you know, in the condition that I was looking for, like this, like a project. There's lots of them coming from the farms out west. Guys bring them back here to Ontario. But they're usually 3/4 tons, 1 tons. A little half ton with a short box is hard to find. So in the midst of looking for a Ford, that's when I stumbled across this Dodge. It was down around Pittsburgh. We went down to Pittsburgh to get this thing. So much for my 302 engine. It still didn't have a home. But hey, then I found that 68 Ford. So it all worked out in the end, didn't it? Oh, brother. You can see here, there's all the loose parts for that Dodge truck. They're all inventoried, cataloged, in bins. A lot of it is already redone, ready to go on. We'll get to it one day. It's been a battle over the years between Deb and me. I want to do it as a patina truck. Deb wants it all fixed up and painted, right? We have a difference in opinion of that. I'm pretty sure in the end she's going to win, and we'll do it her way. But yeah, one of these days we'll get to it. And like I said, if I don't, or we don't, somebody else will get to it. That's how it goes. Yeah, so that's that. I hope you enjoyed snooping around the barn with me. Like I said, if we get to these things one day, we get to them. If we don't, we don't. It's going to be a hell of an auction one of these days around here, eh? I hope it's not too soon, though. Anyway, I'm going to go now. I'd like to thank you, as always, for tuning into the Claremont Classic Garage. I hope you'll come back and see us again soon. And until then, I'm Kevin saying so long for now.